America's most bizarre communities. The shocking truth behind decades of deformed offspring in the heart of America. In a small town that could easily go unnoticed, lay a secret that would chill your bones. This was a community shrouded in mystery and enigma, where whispers echoed through the streets about the generations of deformed offspring. Children born with twisted limbs, faces marked by grotesque asymmetry, this place held stories that could make even the bravest souls shudder. The townsfolk spoke in hushed tones, their eyes darting around as if the very walls had ears that absorbed the terrors of the past, locking them in like a grim museum of humanity's deepest fears. It all began years ago, with the arrival of a strange fog that rolled in one summer night. It curled over the town like a blanket, dulling colors, sapping laughter, and leaving only a cold silence in its wake. Folks claimed that the fog was more than just a peculiar weather pattern. It was a harbinger of misery. Babies were born deformed, and the townspeople could only blink in disbelief. Each new birth brought a chilling reminder of an unspoken curse, and with it, the specter of fear grew heavier as the years went on. Families draped themselves in secrecy. Neighbors exchanged wary glances, holding the sad tales close to their chests. Parents whispered to their children to stay away from the old tree in the middle of town. It stood there like a sentinel, its gnarled branches reaching out like fingers, as though it were guarding the town's dark history. Screams would pierce the night at odd hours. Was it the wind? Or something far more sinister? The truth was buried deep, and the suspense thickened like smoke in the air. Hey! Before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon, and while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. And just when you thought you had a grip on the strangeness of this town, a new family moved in. They were different, of course. Something about their arrival stirred the pot of suspicion and fear. The townsfolk squinted at the newcomer kids as if they were predators in disguise. Would they carry the same curse? Or could they be the key to unlocking the mystery suffocating the air? As whispers grew stronger, curiosity morphed into dread. The sense of something brewing just beneath the surface made everyone uneasy. If only the fog could speak, what terrible truths might it reveal? The stage was set for revelations that could change everything. Night fell over the town like a heavy shroud, thickening the already oppressive silence. The old tree in the center of town stood tall against the dim glow of the streetlights, its twisted branches clawing at the sky. A sense of foreboding hung in the air, and the townspeople avoided even glancing in its direction, as if it were a malevolent being watching and waiting across the street. The new family settled into their home, the aroma of fresh paint mixing with the dampness of the evening. The sight of young children peeking out from the porch brought uneasy murmurs among the townsfolk. What were their names? Where had they come from? Rumors began to swirl. A fresh start for some, a potential disaster for others. Bobby, the local gossip and self-appointed historian of the town's dark records, wasted no time. He leaned toward his neighbor, eyes bright with excitement laced with fear. "You don't think, do you?" he asked, his voice a low hiss. The neighbor's brow furrowed as he shook his head slowly. "Can't be, but what if they bring it with them?" The words, it hung in the air, and for a moment, everything was suffocatingly still. As the new kids played in their yard, laughter mingling with the tension, one of them, a girl with a curious smile and fiery red hair, seemed drawn toward the old tree. Her siblings shouted, urging her to join them, but she hesitated, her wide eyes fixing on the gnarled trunk as if sensing something within it. Inside their home, the girl, Mia, felt a strange pull. The walls whispered secrets, and she found herself wandering closer, leaving her siblings behind. She reached out a hand, brushing against the rough bark, a shiver shooting up her spine. There was a heartbeat in the tree, or was it just a trick of her imagination? Suddenly, The laughter from her siblings turned into panicked cries. "Mia, don't touch it." They rushed toward her, fear visible on their small faces. The lilt of fun was replaced with dread as they approached the old tree, an ominous figure in the gathering dusk. But it was too late. The ground beneath them trembled slightly, as if the earth themselves were warning them. The air thickened, an unnatural chill wrapping around limbs, making hair stand on end. Bobby stared from his porch, heart racing as he watched the scene unfold. "This can't end well," he muttered under his breath. His instincts screamed that the arrival of this new family was not just coincidence. The fog that had once swallowed the town whole had returned in hints, creeping into the corners of this new family's life, veiling their intentions. Just then, a piercing scream carried through the air, dragging Bobby from his thoughts. He turned, eyes wide as he spotted Mia, staring up at the tree. Her mouth opened in horror, so much so that it seemed her very soul had been snatched from her. "What's going on?" Bobby shouted, but his voice fell flat against the strange intensity growing in the atmosphere. As the townsfolk gathered, uneasy and scared, they watched the new family encircle Mia. Their faces morphed with concern and something else, something darker. The tree whispered secrets, louder now, as shadows began to twist beneath its branches. Bobby felt a lump form in his throat. Everything was spiraling. Had they just unleashed the curse that had haunted the town for decades? The tension was palpable, and as the townsfolk held their breath, Bobby realized. The answers lay deep within the fog that was once again beginning to thicken around them. Would the new family solve the mystery, or unleash something more terrifying upon them? Tremors of uncertainty rippled through the crowd as they stared, their fate entwined with the secrets of the past. As dread took hold, one question rose above all: what would happen next? The night was alive with uncertainty, and the fog whispered promises of fear to come. The ground shook once more, a low rumble resonating through the soil, slithering through the feet of the spectators like an unseen serpent. Waves of tension rose with every heartbeat, every shallow breath shared among the townsfolk, grasped tighter by dread. Bobby's heart raced, matching the rhythmic pounding of uncertainty. The new family's presence felt like a dark omen, intertwining with the ancient curse that had long festered in their town. Mia stood frozen, her wide eyes locked onto the tree, an enchanted statue bound by unseen chains. Her siblings hovered near, their wide, terrified eyes glancing back and forth between her and the gnarled bark, frantic whispers bursting forth. "Mia, come back, please." They tugged at her arms, desperation woven through their words, but something held her fast, a magnetic force pulling her deeper into a world beyond their comprehension. "What's wrong with her?" a voice exclaimed, slicing through the panic. Rose, a local mother, stepped forward, clutching her son's hand tightly. Her face twisted in concern as she scanned the gathering crowd. "Someone do something. No one knows what it is," shouted Bobby, stepping off his porch, his resolve solidifying as the shadows cast longer from the old tree. "Not even me." "But it's connected to that tree." A chill passed through the gathering of neighbors. They had all heard the stories, the whispers of how the town was plagued by deformities, the dark events that had twisted lives into shapes inexplicably hideous. But looking back now with fresh eyes, the warning signs had been there all along, cloaked in the laughter of children, masked by the illusion of normalcy. As Mia stepped closer, the murmurs of dread escalated into a symphony of terror. The tree seemed to sway, moving with a life of its own, roots clawing deep into the earth like the grasp of a nightmare. "Mia, don't!" her brother, Liam, screamed again, his voice cracking on the last word. The air thrummed, laden with a thick mist that curled around the townspeople's feet and enveloped them. Bobby's eyes bore into the tree as he fought his way through phantom memories of whispered warnings. "We've left it alone too long. It's time we faced what we buried." The townsfolk exchanged glances, swirling hesitation darting between them like startled birds. Could they confront the source of their fear, or would their fates entwine more tightly with the cursed roots that wove through their town? It was a truth, dark and undeniable, a dilemma that left them standing on the precipice of dread. Just then, A loud crack echoed through the thickening fog. Bobby flinched, heart racing, as he watched Mia suddenly jerk back. Her eyes widened further, reflecting sheer panic as darkness slithered out from under the tree, its tendrils reaching towards her like long, frail fingers. "Mia!" The siblings shouted in unison, voices high with terror. The air thickened as if the night were alive and breathing, swirling around them. In that instant, everything shifted. Anger surged through Bobby, pushing him forward into the chaos. He reached out, straining against the invisible boundaries that kept them apart. "Get back!" he bellowed, but would it be enough? Would rallying against the shadow lurking beneath the branches save Mia from the tree's grip? He launched forward despite the fear. Knowing they were teetering at the edge of a mystery, they were too scared to face chaos of the heart wrestled with duty to protect. As shadows danced and the fog closed in tighter, a voice echoed deep from within the earth. "Come closer, little one." No one was prepared for what would happen next. As Bobby's adrenaline pumped, he felt an inexplicable bond to the tree reveal a deeper truth, a revelation that would change everything they thought they knew about their town and each other. What would happen to Mia? Would they unearth the truth behind the fog? Or would it shroud them all in darkness forever? The night held its breath as the echoes of the past stir within the roots below. Bobby's heart hammered in his chest as he barreled forward, desperation urging him to reach Mia. The suffocating fog wrapped around him like a wet blanket, dampening his resolve. All around him, the townsfolk gasped, their eyes wide with fear and helplessness. The air felt heavy and electric, crackling with an ominous energy that neither he nor anyone else could explain. "Mia, come back!" Liam screamed, his voice raw and cracking. He pulled at her arm, but Mia stood entranced, as if the very essence of the tree had woven itself into her spirit, grounding her to the earth in a way that made her unmovable. Bobby felt rage boil within him, not at Mia, but at the tree. He had heard the whispers since childhood, stories whispered in hushed tones, warnings passed like secrets from one generation to the next. "You stay away from that tree," his grandmother used to tell him. "It's not what it seems." The time for standing idly by had passed. Across the crowd, eyes darted anxiously, some flickering to Bobby as though they were waiting for him to make a decision, an act of bravery to stir their hidden dread. The fog surged around Mia, twisting and coiling like a serpent, pulling her closer to the gnarled roots. "No!" Bobby shouted again, the word laced with desperation. Without thinking, he surged ahead, every ounce of will pushing him forward. Suddenly, the tree split open with a creaking groan, revealing a dark void nestled within its massive trunk. A horrific sound emanated from its depths, a moan that felt like the wails of those long-lost voices echoing through the cemetery of forgotten souls. The townsfolk recoiled, panic escalating. "What is that?" someone whispered, their voice shaking as though it were caught in the grip of the unseen tendrils. A murmur swept through the crowd, a mixture of disbelief and terror. Rose turned pale, clenching her son tighter as shadows spiraled out from the tree, dragging the embers of long-buried fears into the limelight once more. What had been lurking beneath their feet? "Mia!" With newfound determination, Bobby lunged, limbs moving with urgency as if propelled by raw emotion. The ground shook yet again, sending tremors running straight to his core. He reached for her just as the darkness coalesced around her ankles, the ethereal tendrils curling higher, snaking around her frightened form like a vine intent on devouring its prey. "Mia!" he cried, the interior battle of fear and duty igniting every nerve in his body. Time seemed to slow, every heartbeat echoing louder than the last. He could feel his fingers stretching toward his sister, could hear her shallow breaths, could see the fear suffocating her spirit. "Look at me!" Bobby shouted, his voice shattering through the fog. "Mia, come back to us. You have to fight." But Mia's gaze was fixed, unblinking. Shadows danced in her eyes, consuming the girl he knew, and Bobby's gut twisted. What had happened to innocence? What had been lost in the weight of this darkness? In that very moment, the world fell quiet, frozen in terrified anticipation. The townsfolk stood as statues, mouths agape, eyes wide as the pulsating darkness threatened to swallow them all. Bobby felt the pull too, how easy it would be to surrender, to follow the siren call of the tree's seductive embrace. Yet another voice echoed, a sharp clarity slicing through the heavy air. You must face it. Heed the warnings. It was old Mr. Hargrove, the town historian, stepping forward with a trembling hand raised. We did not listen then. We must not allow it to happen again. The fog began to dissipate slightly, as if Mr. Hargrove's words held a thin shard of light. But the dread still hung all-consuming. As Bobby locked eyes with Mia, desperation exploded inside him. No more hesitation. No more fear. But just as he reached her, like a burst of blood-red lightning in the dark, an echoing cry erupted from the center of the tree. Join us or be lost forever. Bobby's breath caught in his throat. What would he sacrifice to save Mia? As his thoughts tangled with the impending darkness, the forces of the past and present collided, leaving him teetering on the brink of fate. What would the outcome be when the truth finally unfurled itself? The night pulsed with life, shadows writhing in anticipation, and the first tendrils of dawn began to break through just beyond the horizon. But would it render any light to the truth awaiting them? Bobby's hand, trembling with a mixture of fear and determination, reached desperately toward Mia. Time felt suspended, every tick of the clock echoing like the pounding of his heart. The fog, thick as despair, clung to his skin as if trying to pull him back. The dark void in the tree seemed alive, pulsating with an unnatural heartbeat that resonated in the depths of his soul. Mia, he shouted again, his voice cracking like glass. He felt the weight of every pair of eyes in the crowd. The town watched, hearts in their throats, waiting for him to do something, anything. Just as he grasped at the darkness slinking around Mia, another deafening roar erupted from the tree. Your fear feeds us. The voice boomed, reverberating in Bobby's chest like a war drum. It was a warning, a command, an invitation to surrender. Shadows erupted from the trunk, swirling menacingly, snaking outward in a dance of predatory intent. The townsfolk gasped, instinctively retreating as the shadows loomed larger. Run! Someone yelled, their voice a desperate plea. Panic surged through the crowd, a chaotic symphony of fear as people began to scatter, scattering like leaves caught in a storm. Bobby's gaze locked back onto Mia. She stood frozen, her eyes reflecting the chaotic shadows. Desperation clawed at his heart, tightening its grip. Mia, please, fight. Each word felt heavier, the air thickening around him. Join us. The voice whispered sweetly from the tree. Give in to your desires and you will be free. Bobby fought against the seductive pull like a moth drawn to flame. He could see glimmers of her true self trapped beneath the surface, battling the tendrils entwined around her. That's not freedom, he pleaded. It's a prison. Then, as if sensing the strength of his conviction, a burst of light broke through the fog. It flickered around them like fireflies, casting eerie shadows across the faces of the townsfolk who dared to glance back. But that flicker wasn't enough. Fear still rooted Bobby in place. The heaviness of dread pinned him like a wall. Just then, Mr. Hargrove stepped forward again. The tree, he shouted above the chaos. It thrives on our pain. Our fear is its power. We must stand together. His voice was a rallying cry, and for a moment, Bobby sensed a glimmer of hope in the old man's sharp gaze. With renewed determination igniting fire in his veins, Bobby shouted, Everyone, focus on Mia. Don't let the tree take any more of us. Some townsfolk hesitated, but their fear quickly transformed into resolve. One by one, they started to chant Mia's name, their voices building into a collective roar that filled the open space. Bobby felt the energy shift, a crackle spreading through the air as the voices harmonized. The shadows recoiled, momentarily losing their grip on Mia. Bobby saw the glimpse of recognition return to her eyes, the spark of rebellion igniting within. Mia, listen, he called out, his voice filled with urgency. You are stronger than the darkness. We're here with you, don't let it win. But then, the tree roared again, its sound reverberating like thunder. Silence. You cannot fight what you cannot see. The ground shuddered beneath them, the air growing heavy with impending doom. Bobby felt the grip of darkness tightening once more, its whispers crawling back toward his sister. Time was running out, and each moment brought more fear. Suddenly, a blinding light ignited within the darkness. It enveloped Mia, illuminating her figure like a beacon. "Bobby," Mia whispered, her voice weak but steady. "I can feel it, the memories. The pain it won't let go." Bobby's heart sank at her words. Would she be lost to the shadows forever? As the light flickered, tension mounted. The town's hope surged, trembling on the edge of a knife. Would they regain Mia, or would she slide into the abyss from which no one returned? In that breathless moment, everything hung in balance. Suddenly, amidst the swirling chaos, a different voice rose, not from the shadows, but from deep within the heart of the tree. "Come seek the truth." It beckoned, as the darkness hungered, for what lay buried deep in their collective past. What truth could emerge from this ancient horror? And who would emerge unscathed when the dust settled? Bobby stood on the precipice of despair, his heart racing as Mia's fragile light flickered like a dying flame. The roar of the tree rattled in the depths of his bones, its words curling around him like smoke. "Come seek the truth," it taunted, a dark melody weaving through their shared fear. He couldn't allow the shadows to reclaim her. "Not now. Mia, you're stronger than this," Bobby shouted, desperation spilling from his lips. The chanting townsfolk grew louder, their voices blending into a cacophony of hope and defiance. Each time they called Mia's name, the darkness around her flickered, like waves crashing against a cliff. But with every surge of light, the tree's laughter deepened. It writhed, limbs twisting as it fed off the fear and doubt of the crowd, eager to consume them all. "Mia, remember who you are," he urged, instinctively stepping forward. But the shadows clawed at him, prickling his skin, whispering threats and lies. "Why fight, Bobby? Look how weak she's become. What if it's too late?" "No," he roared back into the dark. "I won't lose her." In that crucial moment, the brightness surrounding Mia began to pulse to the rhythm of the growing chants. It fought fiercely against the tendrils that ensnared her. Bobby saw her slim silhouette tremble. Every muscle in her body seemed to strain against the oppressive darkness. "Bobby," she gasped, breath trembling. "I can see them. The faces they've been waiting. I have to know." "No." Panic erupted in Bobby's chest. "Don't listen to it. It's trying to pull you in." But Mia's eyes closed tight, as if she were wrestling with shadows of the past, voices that had spoken to her long before this moment. "I must uncover it. It won't let me go until I do." The crowd's energy peaked, a heightened wave of emotion crashing into the tree. Bobby felt their collective will galvanizing, launching them toward an act of bravery. Yet, the shadows lunged back, relentless and feral. Each townsperson's fear materialized, bursting like dark bubbles that threatened to consume them. "Stay together," Mr. Hargrove bellowed, a fierce intensity in his voice. "We fight for our own." Bobby could hear the trust in his words invigorate the crowd. They began to forge a human chain, their fingers interlacing, solidifying their bonds. The tree shook, its branches flailing wildly as if trying to escape. But the battle was more ferocious than ever. A howl erupted from the core of the tree, rattling the ground beneath Bobby's feet. "Your courage will be your undoing," it screamed. "Your past is stained, and your anguish shall be your demise." The branches stretched like claws, snagging at the townsfolk. Several people cried out, clawed at by the darkness that echoed their own ghosts. For a fleeting moment, hopelessness swept through Bobby, chilling him to the bone. Yet, he caught sight of Mia's light, pulsating bravely against the encroaching shadows. He clenched his fists, determination igniting within him. He stepped back and shouted once more, "We will not be defined by that pain. Not anymore." His voice rang over the chaos, carving a path through the murk. It was then that he realized the true power of their unity. As long as they continued to fight together, the whispers of the past could be drowned out. With unexpected clarity, he shouted, "Let the truth bring you strength." The shadows paused, as if contemplating his words. For an instant, the tree hesitated, caught between shadows and burgeoning light. Was it doubt? Fear? Bobby's heart quickened. The collective strength of the crowd surged, and a wave of bright energy burst from Mia, engulfing him. It was love, hope, and memories untainted by the darkness, everything they would become if they stood together. But just as victory hung tantalizingly close, a deep rumbling from the roots of the tree sent tremors through the earth, shaking Bobby from his resolve. An ominous rumble echoed through the crowd, punctuating the eerie silence that suddenly enveloped them. Then came the voice again, a deep growl that burrowed into their hearts. "You think you've won? The truth has always lived in the shadows waiting." Suddenly, the ground cracked open beneath Bobby, threatening to swallow him whole. The air thickened, and before he could react, he felt himself falling. What truth would rise to meet him in the darkness? And would it destroy everything he fought for? Bobby plummeted, the abyss below swallowing up the last remnants of light. The world above faded like a distant echo. The sensation of falling twisted his stomach into knots, each second stretched into eternity. As darkness enveloped him, his pulse raced, drowning out the remnants of the world above. Was Mia safe? Had they lost everything? A sudden jolt stopped his descent, and he landed hard on damp ground. Pain shot through his body, but the fear of losing Mia eclipsed it. The darkness around him twisted and curled, a living entity whispering secrets that stung like barbed wire. Reality flickered, and shadows danced just beyond his reach. He scrambled to his feet, heart pounding wildly, straining to listen. Was that a distant voice? "Mia!" he shouted, his voice hoarse, choked by overwhelming dread. The silence that followed snatched the breath from his lungs. Out of the thick shadows materialized vague figures. Faces emerged from the murk, their expressions twisted in agony. They were familiar yet distorted, the anguish in their eyes mirroring Bobby's worst fears. "Help us," a voice begged, trembling with despair. The voice was haunting, drawing him closer. "Who are you?" Bobby dared to ask, pulling himself together despite the nightmare surrounding him. "What do you want?" "We were once," the voice faltered, choked by sorrow. "Lost like her." Bobby's heart sank as the shadows shifted, revealing the demonically twisted versions of Mia's past. Each face was a ghost marked by pain, memories she sought but couldn't efface. They reached out with gnarled fingers, calling him closer. "You must awaken her," but the shadows converged, encircling him, pressing in. "Your truth, Bobby, it leads to darkness." "No," he yelled, rage and fear swirling within him. "I won't let you take her." With every ounce of strength, Bobby fought his way through the phantoms, pushing back against the grip of despair that soaked into him. As he moved, he could feel their grasp weaken, the shadows retreating like a tide. Courage clawed its way to the surface, igniting a fierce fire in his chest. He remembered the faces of the townsfolk, strong, united, and shouting her name. Their belief in Mia was his armor. But then, the air thickened again, and a chilling familiarity swept over him. The tree's gnarled branches appeared before him, roots twisting like serpents in the periphery of his vision. "Feel it," the voice whispered again, deep and ominous. "This truth is a curse. Let go." "No," Bobby shouted, launching himself toward the roots. He stumbled, but he pushed forward. "She's more than your sadness. She's hope." The ground vibrated beneath his feet. The shadows writhed and raged. Above him, he could hear the town calling out, their voices echoing through the darkness. "Mia, fight!" The shadows screamed, voices of the past rising to a fevered pitch. "You would challenge the truth?" they mocked. "With nothing but flimsy hope? Hope is our strength." Bobby cried, fueled by the memories of laughter, friendship, and love that marked his past with Mia. "I won't let you consume her. We will find a way, together." Suddenly, the shadows undulated violently, causing the ground to quake with rage. Bobby stumbled, scrambling as the darkness lashed out, striking at his resolve. The air crackled with energy, and in a desperate act of defiance, he called out her name again. Mia, you've got to fight. You're stronger than your past. Time stalled as the shadows recoiled, a moment suspended in the chaos. Deep within the dark, sparks of light flickered. Then, with a surge, a wave of brightness lit the space around him, illuminating the daunting figures of the past. They hesitated, and for a split second, hope flickered brighter than fear. But in the surge of light, Bobby felt a powerful tremor at the roots. It swelled with malicious energy, threatening to pull him into the very depths of despair he fought against. It's not over, Bobby. It's only just begun. As the shadows lunged, Bobby braced himself. Would the flickering light prevail? Would Mia's strength shine through the darkness? Or would their ties break under the weight of the truth? With every heartbeat, the answer grew more elusive, the battle teetering on the brink of chaos. The ground shook violently as the shadows lunged at Bobby, tendrils of dark energy wrapping around his limbs like chains. He gasped, panic surging through him as he fought against their grip. Each shadow screamed, their cries a cacophony of his failures, the very essence of his fears dragging him down. Fight, he shouted again, the word ripping from his throat. Light flared brightly, pushing back against the oppressive darkness. Yet the shadows seemed to warp and bend, adapting to his pleas. They snaked around him, a thick fog of despair that pressed in from all sides. Mia, Bobby growled, forcing the name out like a lifeline. You're not alone. You have to believe. In that moment, he could feel something shift within him, a spark igniting against the overwhelming darkness. The figures of sorrow began to show signs of fatigue, their hollers faltering, replaced by something resembling doubt. Maybe, just maybe, his words were reaching the core of Mia's fight. But the weight of the shadows was ruthless. They surged forward, blurring the edges of reality until it felt like the world was collapsing around him. You think love can save you? They hissed, voices merging into a dark symphony. You're just a man. Nothing but a whisper in the storm. Desperation clawed at Bobby's throat. I'm more than a whisper. He pushed back with renewed vigor, recalling every moment of laughter, every shared glance with Mia. I'm her anchor, and I won't let you take her. Suddenly, a piercing chill cut through the shadows, sending ice water through his veins. Mia's laughter echoed faintly in his ears, a sound as vibrant as sunlight piercing through cold, dark fog. Mia, he shouted, urgency weaving through his voice. You can do this. I'm here. The shadows recoiled, hesitant, their forms wavering like smoke. Bobby thrust forth his hand, channeling the strength from within the vision of Mia's smile, the warmth of her embrace. It lifted him, propelling him against the encroaching tide of darkness. In the chaos, a new figure shimmered into view, Mia, but twisted and fragile. Her eyes were full of uncertainty, haunted by the shadows that clung to her like a shroud. Anguish etched deep into her features as she hesitated. Bobby, you can't believe in us, he cried, the words cascading from him like a desperate prayer. You are more than this. You're not alone. For a heartbeat, time stood still. The shadows trembled, the light flickering brighter as Mia's gaze met his. The sense of despair began to dissolve, swept away by the force of shared memories that coursed through them both like an electric current. Then, a furious roar erupted from the shadows, flinging Bobby back. He landed hard, pain exploding in his side. The darkness surged forward, frantic and enraged. Make him suffer, they screeched, and in that moment of chaos, Bobby's thoughts raced. This was a fight for far more than Mia. It was a battle for the very fabric of the connection they shared. A bond stronger than any darkness that tried to tear them apart. With all he had left, he staggered to his feet, summoning the last vestiges of his strength. We'll face this together, he shouted, his voice rising over the howl of despair. An electrifying surge of light radiated again, this time more intense, illuminating the shadows threatening him. He pivoted towards Mia, pleading, fight with me, unchain yourself from the past. Bobby felt the pulse of their connection spark anew, a tether of love bridging the gap between them. The dark entities recoiled, shadows bending and twisting away from the impenetrable warmth that emanated between them. But just then, a blinding flash erupted, forking through the realm. Bobby shielded his eyes, absorbing the shockwave that radiated outward. As he regained his bearings, he realized the pulsing figures of darkness were coalescing again, and their true form was beginning to reveal itself. "Do you understand what lurks beneath?" The voice reverberated, more deep and primal than before, shaking the very ground beneath him. "Your hope is a delusion. Prepare for the ultimate truth." With dread winding tightly around him, Bobby felt the confrontation nearing a critical point. Would they unveil their darkest secrets in a final showdown, or could they triumph over this menacing truth together? He took a step forward, the weight of the moment thick in the air, and as the darkness converged once more, he braced himself for the revelations to come. The shadows warped violently, twisting into grotesque forms that barely resembled the figures of sorrow from moments before. Bobby's heart raced, pounding like a drum against his ribcage. "What truth?" he shouted, his voice fierce yet laced with fear. He could feel Mia's presence, flickering at the edges of his vision, as if she were being tugged between realms caught in the battle between light and darkness. The air crackled with tension, alive with the whispers of the shadows, weaving chilling tales of doubt. "Your pain fuels us, Bobby. It is you who has chained her," they taunted, laughter echoing with dread. The darkness surged, and pieces of Bobby's past began to emerge, flashes of moments he wished he could forget. Lost friendships, arguments with Mia, and the times he let fear dictate his choices. "No," he yelled, clenching his fists, trying to drown out the memories. They swirled and writhed around him, laughing, disassembling his resolve piece by piece. "You have no hold on me." Suddenly, the shadows shifted, forming a colossal beast, an amalgamation of all his regrets and fears, its many eyes glimmering with malice. "This is who you are. A hollow man surrounded by shadows. She will never choose you." The voice boomed, deep and reverberating, shaking Bobby's very core. Despair overwhelmed him. He hesitated, the massive figure looming menacingly, its intentions clear. Doubt crept in, crawling under his skin. Would Mia even want him if she could see what he truly was, a man battling against the worst parts of himself? But then, a faint echo of Mia's laughter bubbled up in the back of his mind, brightening every dark corner. A glow began to rise in his chest, pushing against the encroaching shadows, fighting back the weight of the despair threatening to wrap around him entirely. "No, I won't let you win," he shouted, the fire of his determination igniting a fervor he hadn't felt before. Suddenly, in the distance, he could see Mia's silhouette emerging from the swirling chaos. She looked more like herself, the light around her shimmering with hope. "Bobby," she cried, her voice breaking through the din. "I do believe. I'm fighting for us." At that moment, Bobby felt their bond strengthen, the love they shared creating a beacon that shone through the darkest parts of despair. The monster before him faltered, its eyes widening with confusion and fear. Bobby instinctively took a step towards Mia, feeling her strength pouring into him. "Together," he shouted, extending his hand towards her, as if trying to bridge the space between them. "Look beyond the shadows. Remember who we are." With a fierce resolve, they both focused on their shared memories, the laughter, stolen kisses, the quiet moments of late-night talks under the stars. The light magnified, surging outward like a tidal wave. The shadowy beast howled, suddenly engulfed in a bright light. But in a flash, agony erupted all around as the darkness began to react. It writhed violently, attempting to pull the couple apart. "You cannot escape your past, Bobby. It will consume you." Bobby felt the strength wavering. An absolute desperation clawed at his insides, threatening to pull him and Mia back into those shadows. Would they truly be able to breach the depths of despair threatening to tear them apart? And then, right before another torrent of darkness could capsize them, he shouted, "We are not defined by our failures." With every ounce of energy, Bobby pushed forth, igniting the very heart of their connection. Would it be enough to sever the shadows from their lives once and for all, proving that love was indeed their greatest power? As the darkness surged, a sudden scream pierced the air. "You're weak, you will always be weak." Bobby and Mia braced for the inevitable backlash, the crushing feeling of uncertainty clawing at the edges of their resolve. Just as the shadows seemed to gather for one last assault, a new figure began to emerge from the chaos, casting an unsettling silhouette. "Who or what is that?" Bobby whispered, fear tightening in his throat. As the darkness contorted and danced, a new force loomed on the horizon, shocking in its form, powerful in intent. And then, silence fell, leaving them locked in a moment of breathless anticipation. As the silence thickened, the grotesque silhouette before them twisted and contorted, emerging sharp and stark from the shadows. It was the embodiment of fear itself, a monstrous version of Bobby, one formed from his regrets, insecurities, and the haunting doubts that plagued him for so long. The dark creature stood with slimy, outstretched arms, grains of shimmering darkness flowing from it like a dark river. "Mia!" Bobby shouted, desperation clawing at his throat. "Stay with me." Each breath was laborious, weighted down by the horror crystallizing in front of him. He could feel her hesitance from far away, the pure fear shrieking in their hearts. But he also felt her determination to fight back, flickering like a dying candle. "Bobby, I won't let it crush you," she called back, her voice full of courage, yet shaky. "Remember the laughter, the good times, we are stronger together." The memories echoed, bright and vibrant, lazy days spent in warm sunlight, shared smiles, and promises that had once floated in the air between them like invisible threads. Those moments were more potent than the dark wails that encircled them now. They were living truths. The creature roared, vibrating the very ground beneath them. "You think you can escape?" It snarled, a twisted grin stretching across its face, revealing teeth sharp as knives. "You're nothing but the sum of your failures, a crumbling man who believes in fairy tales." Bobby could barely breathe as he met the gaze of his monstrous self. The humiliation caused a wave of icy fear rush through him, attempting to close around his heart. But as he zeroed in on Mia, the flickering light started to solidify. "No, we are not defined by mistakes," he yelled, pulling strength from the light blooming between them. "We are shaped by love, by our choices." Suddenly, the shadows trembled, a ripple of discontent snapping through the air like electrified wires. Bobby stepped forward, reaching deep into every corner of their shared memories, every laughter, every moment of triumph. "You're wrong. Love doesn't dim under fear. It grows brighter, protects." Mia stepped alongside him, a fierce glow radiating from her. "Together we are stronger than what haunts us." And as they stood united, the shadows wavered, confusion seeping into their depths, the dark beast losing its grip. The echoes of the town rose to form a chorus. "Fight! We are with you." The voices solidified their strength, amplifying Bobby and Mia's power as they pushed against that cursed abyss. Then, with renewed clarity, Bobby lunged at the snarling embodiment, a wave of light bursting from hand to hand. "You will not take her," he roared, and as he did, his fingers touched the otherworldly darkness. An explosion of blinding light erupted, consuming the menacing figure within. "No, this can't be," it shrieked, the shadows collapsing under the radiant glow. The monstrous visage twisted and distorted until, with a final scream of anguish, it unraveled into a cascade of darkness that evaporated into the night air. The fog around them thinned, dissipating like a worked-up dream being washed away by morning light. A hush fell upon the gathering townsfolk as the malevolent energy dispersed, daylight seeping into the crevices, illuminating the true faces of everyone present. Bobby turned back to Mia, their eyes locking in a moment that transcended words. Relief washed over him, tears welling as they stood together, heartbeats almost synchronized. "It's over," he breathed, exhaling the weight that had borne down on them for what felt like a lifetime. Mia smiled, brushing her fingers against his cheek. "No, it's just the beginning. The fog may clear, but the memories will remain, both the pain and joy they shape who we are." Hand in hand, they stood tall, newfound warmth enveloping them like a soft blanket. Reputation about past struggles was replaced, finally, by courage and love. The light began break thoroughly through the darkness, casting warmth upon every face, igniting whispers of hope through the crowd. Bobby looked around at the townsfolk. Fear had made them strangers, but their fight had rekindled that ember of community they thought lost. They had faced their shadows and emerged victorious. Now they could turn toward the light of possibility. And just as the last remnants of darkness vanished from the horizon, laughter bubbled up once more in the crisp, clear air. As Bobby and Mia reveled in this moment, the surrounding townsfolk united, their burdens lightened, knowing they could forge ahead together. But as the first rays of sunlight brushed across the trees, Mia turned to Bobby, her expression serious. "We can't ignore the truth. The scars may fade, but sharing our story, it might save another." "Together," he said, squeezing her hand, "we'll share everything." With that vow, Bobby and Mia stepped forward into the dawn, ready to break the cycle of their past. Each footstep resolute, they opened the door to healing, embarking on a journey of truth together. And just like that, they found closure amidst the shadows, knowing their battle was only the beginning of something beautiful. Now it's time for you to keep this moment alive. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button to feed the algorithm and let us grow together. Flood the comments section with your thoughts and theories about this conclusion. Every reaction matters to us. And please, don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this triumphant end. Let us keep the conversation going.